Tonight, a vision for the future of policing, a return to recognisable community officers on the beat, and a pledge from the Chief Constable to cut crime and support victims.
I think seeing them would be reassurance for a lot of people. You know, people that didn't want to pick up the telephone and phone about incidents, but to see them walking about, I think that's quite a good idea.
We're at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, where after weeks of dire economic warnings, the Chancellor has pledged austerity will come to an end.
Also making the headlines, the satellites guiding emergency services tackling wildfires and floods.
And in sport, behave. The Rangers interim chairman John Gilligan hits back at Dave King and rules out his Ibrox return.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6. Good evening. A return to recognisable community officers on the beat in local areas is at the heart of a new vision for the future being put forward by Police Scotland. The Chief Constable has told us her priorities include cutting crime and supporting victims.
But she says the force needs more investment in technology and resources and is looking at whether it can borrow money to pay for it. Here's our senior reporter, Gordon Cree.
Vandalism and antisocial behaviour like the targeting of this property in Dalkeith consistently cause anger and frustration in communities around the country. In the town today, people were clear they want to see more police patrols.
It would help, but you don't see any police, hardly. Can?
There's too many kids getting away with murder nowadays that older people feel vulnerable in the streets.
I think seeing them would be reassurance for a lot of people. You know, people that didn't want to pick up the telephone and phone about incidents, but to see them walking about, I think that's quite a good idea.
And in the vision for Police Scotland over the next few years, the Chief Constable agrees.
And that's part of our drive around community policing, having those visible local officers that can address those things that affect people's quality of life. I want them to have local identifiable officers that can pick up those issues and make sure that we tackle them before they escalate.
So it's someone that they would know the name of and they know I can go to that person?
Yeah, absolutely. And technology is part of that, being able to go onto our website and find out and contact the officer directly.
There are also plans for a new cyber and fraud division to tackle online crime, as well as more use of AI to help reduce paperwork. But all of this comes at a price.
You don't have enough money. You've said you're in budget discussions, you're exploring the possibility of borrowing money. What would that be for? And what can't you do if you don't get more money?
So this current year, we were supported by Scottish Government to embark on the first year of reform. And what I've asked for and what I'll be presenting to them moving forward is an increased capital investment in technology and predominantly our estate. Our estate is in poor order. We need to invest, we need to make it fit for purpose to both meet the needs of communities but ensure that officers and staff have buildings that are modern and can support them to deliver good quality policing.
The history of Police Scotland so far has been about saving money, but the Chief Constable says this vision will require more investment, something she says is essential in dealing with the increasingly complex demands being placed on policing. Gordon Cree, STV News at Police Scotland headquarters, Tullyallen.
At the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has insisted there will be no more austerity in her watch, despite taking tough decisions to stabilise the public finances.
The Chancellor offered a more upbeat message after weeks of dire warnings about the state of the economy. Our Westminster correspondent Paris Gertsianis reports.
You see it everywhere at Labour conference, the message of change. The biggest change of all, now they're in government. Chancellor Rachel Reeves began her speech by saluting Scotland's new Labour MPs.
In Edinburgh, in Glasgow across the Central Belt and out in the Western Isles. Labour is back in Scotland too.
But being in government means tough decisions, and that brings protest. Rachel Reeves has blamed those tough decisions on a £22 billion black hole left by the last Conservative government.
The road ahead is steeper and harder than we expected. And I made the choice to means test the winter fuel payment so that it's only targeted at those most in need. I know that not everyone in this hall or in the country will agree with every decision that I make.
Under pressure to offer some good news, the Chancellor promised a Labour government will mean higher wages, better jobs and more investment.
A Britain trading, competing and leading in a changed world. A Britain founded on the talent and the effort of working people. That is the Britain we're building. That is the Britain I believe in. Together, let's go and build it.
She's serious, she's long-term, she's about investing, about having an industrial strategy that, of course, includes Scotland.
Speak to first ever Chancellor of the Executive. It's a woman who understands the needs of working families.
The key line for me was no return to austerity. I think Rachel Reeves recognised what's happened, the hollowing out of our communities, the hopelessness that's been left in so many of our communities after 14 years of the Tories.
In their conference speeches, Ian Murray and Anna Sarwar set their sights on 2026.
Conference, lifting people out of poverty is what Labour governments do. It's in our DNA. We've done it before and we will do it again.
For lots of you, there was only one incompetent government you had to get rid of. But in Scotland, we were stuck with two. So at the general election, we got rid of one incompetent government, and in 2026, we finish the job and we get rid of the other one.
Tomorrow, the Prime Minister gives his speech to conference. The challenge, to spell out how change will improve people's lives and the fortunes of the UK. Paris Gortsianis, STV News.
Well, Rachel Reeves made history in speaking at conference as the first female Chancellor. Our political editor, Colin Mackay, is in Liverpool and watched her speech. So, Colin, what did you make of it?
Well, for all she says that there will be no return to austerity, she's sticking incredibly hard to her plan to scrap the winter fuel allowance for millions of pensioners. She even got applause from the conference for her spending plans, including that. On the economy, she said that growth is the challenge, investment is the solution. But in Scotland, it's hard to see how you grow the economy when a big part of it, the Grangemouth refinery, is due to be closing, and there was no mention of any investment for Grangemouth. On carbon capture, she talked about Teesside, Humberside and Merseyside, but again, there was no mention of plans for Scotland, the Acorn project, for example.
And it's the Prime Minister's turn tomorrow. What are you expecting from him, Colin?
Well, this will be the first Prime Minister speech to a Labour conference in 15 years. It'll actually be the first time an election-winning Labour Prime Minister will address conference in almost 20 years. The last time it was Tony Blair after the 2005 election. So I think he'll try and be a bit more positive, try and move away from the doom and gloom, try and move on from the embarrassing row over the freebies. He was covered in glitter at his conference speech last year, but it's been a tough few weeks for him. I think he needs to refine that sparkle.
All right, Colin, from Liverpool, thank you.
Other stories: and parts of a former Castle hotel near Falkirk have been destroyed in a fire that police are treating as deliberate. Crews were called to Airth Castle Hotel at about 1 o'clock this morning. The hotel was used as a wedding venue until it closed last year after going into administration.
A nursing union has voted to accept the Scottish Government's NHS pay deal. The Royal College of Nursing Scotland says 61% of respondents voted in favour of a 5.5% rise. If formally accepted, almost 170,000 NHS employees will receive the pay increase, which would be backdated to April. Now, a new service has been launched in Scotland using satellites and space to help firefighters and emergency responders on the ground tackle floods, wildfires, landslides and oil spills.
Those who work in the front line say the service will be a game changer, helping to keep communities and their own crews safe when disaster strikes. Laura Piper has this report.
With wildfires and flooding an increasing threat, emergency services are now looking to space for support. A new service is launching using state-of-the-art satellites to provide vital data when a crisis hits.
It's about providing that information that will help the emergency responders respond to the instance. So, for example, if they need to direct traffic or if you need to evacuate houses, it's about that extra information that will help them make those decisions.
The new service will be available to all responders 24 hours a day, providing critical eyes in the sky during a crisis. It can track where flooding or wildfires could be escalating, mapping smoke plumes and flood depth from far out in orbit, giving a much clearer picture to those on the ground.
The disaster charter, you've got about 270 satellites that you can call on to get data. Copernicus, you've got about 8. So what SEPA have done is they've integrated 2 really good services into something that will serve Scotland. It is game-changing, and I really hope that this is something that inspires the rest of the UK to go like, oh, we need that, we need to do that, we need to follow that example.
The use of satellite data really can save lives. The Copernicus service has been operating for more than a decade, helping in high-risk events like flooding and wildfires.
The detailed information it provides has already led to faster responses in disaster situations across the globe.
This now will give us real-time data. It allows us to build up a picture. From there, we can make decisions about where we're going to place our crews. It will enhance firefighter safety, and that we can then build tactical plans up where we're going to evacuate. Without a doubt, it will save lives.
The service is now officially live and on standby for any crisis which may lie ahead. Laura Piper, STV News.
A fatal accident inquiry has heard how police removed 2 knives from the home of a man the day before he killed his girlfriend there. James Kennedy stabbed his partner, Joanne Gallagher, more than 50 times during the attack. Officers told the inquiry at Hamilton Sheriff Court that they took 2 steak knives from the flat after being called there as part of a welfare check. The inquiry also heard a hammer and blades had been seen in the property during a separate visit by social workers. The inquiry continues. Police are still searching for a man who sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl in North Lanarkshire. The incident took place in Woodland behind Miller Street in Courtbridge on Friday. A woman and 4 horses have died following a crash in Renfrewshire. Officers were called to the A737 near Howwood at around 3:10 this morning following the collision, which involved a car and a box van. A 59-year-old woman died at the scene while 3 other people were taken to hospital. After the initial crash, 6 horses were reported to be running loose on the road. 4 of the horses died after being struck by vehicles. Around 100 jobs are at risk at a manufacturing facility in Scotstoun after its owners announced it's to close after more than 120 years of operations. Albion Automotive and South Street in Scotstoun will cease operations on the 4th of October after its American parent company said its contract with its largest customer was not being extended. Next year marks the 850th anniversary of Glasgow's city status. To celebrate the years gone by and those ahead, multiple cultural and community events will be held across the city. The full programme has now been revealed. Vidushi Tavari has more.
Scotland's largest city, celebrating its 850th birthday, and everyone with a connection is invited.
2025 isn't for visitors, although they're welcome to join in. It's an event for Glasgow and Glaswegians.
Plans for the city's year-long birthday party will incorporate some of the biggest events in Glasgow's festive calendar, including Piping Live and the Glasgow Mela.
It's home, isn't it, for both of us? We're Glaswegians, born and bred, so I think that's why I've always been interested in the history and in our connections to the city. It represents a really good opportunity for us to use the Mela to delve into that further.
Celebrating the city's 850th anniversary, the year-long extravaganza is sure to be a blast for Glasgow's residents. However, with the Commonwealth Games just around the corner, does Glasgow have the resources for 2 events of this scale?
It's not a big scale event. It's not a COP26 with lots of security. It's not shutting down streets for road races. It is about people celebrating and doing stuff together in their own communities.
It's a chance to celebrate the people that make Glasgow and blow out the candles on another half-century. Vidushi Davari, STV News.
Now, Rahman has the sport, and there's been plenty happening.
Absolutely, John. Stephen Naismith was sacked as Hearts head coach yesterday. We'll give you his reaction shortly, and the Rangers interim chairman John Gilligan has been speaking today.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
Good evening. Rangers interim chairman John Gilligan has hit back at Dave King, saying there's no appetite within the board for King to return as chairman, and he's urged the South Africa-based businessman to behave like a proper shareholder. Gilligan also admits there's a considerable gap between Rangers and Celtic, but believes this can be bridged.
Thank you.
Back in the director's box. After John Bennett stood down as Rangers chairman for health reasons, John Gilligan is in temporary charge until a permanent successor is appointed. Former Rangers chairman Dave King, who is the club's single largest shareholder, says he would like to return for 2 years. He's also been critical of the way the club is being run. Gilligan, who was part of a consortium with King that took over at Ibrox in 2015, gave this short shrift.
My view is it's a wee bit unrealistic, just no appetite for it at the moment, because one being as Dave was here before and he stepped away, other people stepped up, Douglas stepped down and John stepped in, so there's just no appetite. Please, take it below the radar. Behave like a proper shareholder, don't do what you're doing.
He said that the club should call an EGM to determine who should be the next chairman.
Well, again, it's a wee bit unrealistic, because EGMs are invariably called by people who wish to change something. So the current board don't wish to change.
Gilligan expects to stay in the role for a few months. He says the club's priority is appointing a new chief executive. He also acknowledged Rangers are playing catch-up to Celtic, both on and off the pitch.
The gap at the moment is considerable. That you just have to win your games, get back challenging for the top spot. And then if we get into the level of Europe that we hope to get into, then the gap can change quite quickly. Sometimes we're ahead, sometimes Celtic are ahead. At the moment we're chasing. There's no argument there. Why would I'm not stupid enough to say otherwise, but we keep chasing. We'll be there.
Well, Rangers marked their return to Ibrox on Saturday with a 3-0 win over Dundee in the quarter-finals of the League Cup. They'll face Motherwell in the semi-finals after Stuart Carrawell's side defeated Dundee United 2-1. Now, Stephen Naismith says he's disappointed his time at Hearts has come to an end, but accepts this season's results weren't acceptable. Naismith was sacked as head coach yesterday. The club have already received a large number of applications for the post. B-team coach Liam Fox has been placed in interim charge. Lewis Mickey is at Tynecastle.
Yes, following a board meeting on Saturday evening, Stephen Naismith is no longer the manager here at Hearts. He was sacked yesterday afternoon. Naismith, who had been in the post for 17 months, was relieved of his duties following the team's disastrous start to the season. Hearts have lost 8 games in a row across all competitions, their latest defeat away to St Mirren at the weekend. That was a result which leaves the club rooted to the bottom of the Premiership with just 1 point from 6 games, with Chief Executive Andrew McKinlay saying there's little evidence of the team's performances and results improving. Well, Hearts are currently in discussion with the owner of Brighton, Tony Bloom, over a £10 million investment into the club, and his company, Jamestown Analytics, will be involved in the search for a new head coach here. Many Hearts fans were looking to see Naismith go out the door, but who would they like to see come in and succeed him? We've been speaking to a few of them.
Didn't they do a good job, innit?
And who do you hope might come in, or what kind of manager?
I want to see attacking football in Hearts, man. I miss it, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we need. I'm not too sure, though.
It may be a bit soon. I mean, I know he's had a terrible run of results, but
before that he'd done well with the side, and it's knee-jerk, I think, a wee bit.
What do you think the club should be looking for next?
More passion in the team, close somebody down, and obviously the lack of composure.
Hearts fans will be looking for a return to form as soon as possible, and they'll be hoping that comes against Ross County here at Tynecastle on Saturday. But there's one man who won't be in the dugout for that game, and that's Stephen Naismith.
Well, Stephen Naismith has signed a contract extension as head coach just last month. That after guiding Hearts to third place last season. Jamie Borthwick looks back on Naismith's career at Tynecastle.
This was the club that over 6 years would fast-track Stephen Naismith from international striker to budding head coach. But after one too many bumps in the road, the 38-year-old and Heart of Midlothian are now heading in different directions. Naismith arrived at Tynecastle in 2018 and was later made club captain. He lifted the championship trophy in 2021. That would be his final act as a player, and Naismith joined Robbie Nielsen's coaching staff. He then took charge of the club's B team, whilst also working with Steve Clarke at Scotland. When Nielsen was sacked that April, Naismith was made interim head coach, suffering a derby defeat in his first match.
All is not lost. We've lost a game. We've got time and we've got games on our side.
Hearts eventually finished fourth, ensuring a Europa Conference League qualifying slot after a bad-tempered Derby Day finale. Hearts decided he was their man, but would initially adopt the title of technical director to bypass UEFA regulations regarding coaching badges. After being knocked out of the Conference League by PAOK, Naismith was restored as permanent head coach.
I'm a player that was an attacker. I want to play attacking football and I want to play football that's entertaining.
In his first full season, Naismith was unable to get consistency out of his team until a shock win at Celtic Park turned his fortunes around. Hearts cantered to third place, guaranteed European football until Christmas and a contract extension for the coaching team. This summer, Naismith was active in the transfer market, signing 9 new players as 7 departed Tynecastle. The campaign kicked off with a positive performance as Rangers were held 0-0, but the season quickly turned sour. Consecutive defeats had supporters calling for a change. His playing career was laden with trophies and success at the highest level, but after highs and lows, Stephen Naismith's first shot at management ultimately ended in failure. Jamie Borthwick, STV Sport.
Now, after playing his part in Celtic's comeback win against Falkirk in the quarter-finals of the League Cup yesterday, Adam Ida says the competition between himself and Kyogo Furuhashi for a starting spot brings the best out of both players. The Bairns led twice at Celtic Park. They were 2-1 up at half-time, but Ida and Nicholas Kuhn both scored a brace to secure Celtic's place in the semi-finals at Hampden, where they'll face Aberdeen.
I want to score as many goals this season, and just like Kyogo, he's an unbelievable player. I don't think it matters to him whether he starts or whether he's on the bench. We both have the same aim, that's to score goals and help this team, and I think we've got off to a pretty good start this season.
Do you think it's bringing the best out of each other?
Yeah, definitely. It's a friendly competition. It's the same in training. We're always working hard, and there's no bitterness between us. So we're friendly with each other, and he helps me just like I help him.
We can take great relief from having come here and played the way we've played, and as I say, made a statement that Celtic had to make 4 changes at around about the hour mark to try and turn the game in their favour.
And Celtic will face Aberdeen on Saturday the 2nd of November with a 5:30 kick-off. Rangers against Motherwell is the following day at 3 o'clock.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Autumn Sale.
All right, time to get the weather forecast now from Philip.
A dry start to the day will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Unfortunately for the rest of this week, things are remaining quite changeable and unsettled. So not like last week where we had high pressure dominating our weather. That high pressure is now off to the north. We'll see low pressure moving in from the south of the UK by the middle of this week. And all the time our wind directions now change to a north to northeasterly. So once again we're dragging in that cold Arctic air. So it does mean that temperatures will be below average for the time of year. Back to you just now as we head into the overnight period. It will be remaining largely dry for many of us, despite seeing a lot of that thick cloud around that we've seen through the course of the day. Thanks to that cloud, it does mean temperatures won't be dropping too far tonight for most towns and cities, sitting between 9 and 11 degrees Celsius. Through the early hours of tomorrow morning, the winds will start to pick up speed, and by tomorrow afternoon, it will be quite breezy, fairly widespread. We'll also start to see some showery outbreaks of rain moving in from the north, mostly affecting parts of the east. Further west is where we'll have the best of any brighter spells tomorrow, with temperatures reaching highs around 13 or 14 degrees Celsius. Then looking ahead to Wednesday, overall it will be a less windy day compared to Tuesday. We start the day with some pleasant early morning sunshine, perhaps a touch of frost and some mist and fog patches. It will be turning cloudier through the course of the afternoon, and then by evening we'll see this next band of rain moving in from the south. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that's all we have time for this evening, but we are back tomorrow at 6.
From all of us, thank you for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.